This is the Ethernet Starter Kit from Wago. The code for this product is 8003-001. It comes with a 24-volt DC power supply, Ethernet controller, an input and output card, end plate, switch, some wires, a memory card, and a Wago operating tool. I'll just go through now how to wire this together. So first we have this plug here, which is for the 24-volt DC power supply. You can see that there's positives and negatives. So now we want to take one of the long wires, use the screwdriver, insert it into the cage clamp hole until it's stuck. Then now we can insert the wire like this, and now it's solid. So now we want to wire the positive to the positive of the controller, which is this one here. Place the operating tool, just like that. I'll do the same for the neutral. It comes with 2 ports, but that doesn't matter. They're common together, so you can power 2 devices with 24-volt DC. Now this will go into the neutral. There you go. So now I've wired that. Push this in like that. Now what this is doing is it's giving 24-volt DC to the node. So 240 will come in, the power supply transforms it to 24-volt DC, and the controller runs on 24-volt DC. Now we want to give 24-volt DC to the controller as well. So the controller runs on a separate voltage. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to common the positives together. So now what I've done is that there's 24-volt DC across the node, and I'm just giving 24-volt DC to the controller now, and also neutral. So insert this operating tool like that. Yeah. Insert. So they're just the 2 shorter wires that you need to loop for the controller. Okay, now I'm going to wire the input. So generally with inputs, they act like a button. Some of them need power. So you can see here that there is one spot for 24-volt DC, then there's DI1 and DI2. So DI1 is digital input 1, DI2 is digital input 2. So what I want to do is I'm going to wire the positive of the input card to the positive of the switch. Like that. And now I'm going to wire. So generally input 1 and input 2, so it starts on the left, goes to the right. You can have a look at the spec sheet to know which one is 1, 2, 3, 4 as you get to the larger numbers. So now I'm wiring input 2. So this switch here is just to simulate a button or a switch being pressed, and later we can program that to turn on an output. Okay, so now that's done. This is my power cable here. So I'll connect that in here, like that. Let's turn it on. So the controller's just booting up, and we've got all green lights. So the next thing we're going to do is establish communication to the controller. Your starter kit would have come with this serial cable here, one end USB and one end serial. So to connect to the controller, just use your screwdriver to lift up the flap here, and you'll see a black switch down here. It's got 3 positions. Top is run, middle is programming mode, and bottom is stop. So we won't touch that for the minute. What we want to do is we get the serial cable, just plug it into the controller, and now we use the USB and connect that to the computer. So by now you should have installed 3 programs: Wago Ethernet Settings, Wago IO Check, and Codesys. Firstly, we want to establish communication to the controller, so we do that through Ethernet Settings. So give that a double click. Just select the Settings tab over here and click Communication. And now we want to select serial ports because we're using a serial communication cable. Here you can see the COM port that it is using, so that's an easy way to tell. COM5, which you may need later. Now it's identifying the device, just give it a few seconds, and yes, here we can see it's a 75880, firmware version is 8, you can tell here. Now just go to the network tab. This is where we set the IP address. We change this up here to a static configuration because we want to change it to a static IP address. So now I'm just going to put in an IP address. This IP address needs to be on the same range as your computer, and I'll show you guys how to do that just a bit. And now I'm just going to write the settings to the controller now. Just give it a few seconds. You can also change the IP address with the dip switches. I'll show you how to do that as well. Okay, so now I have the static IP address is 192.168.1.50. Now the computer, to be on the same range, needs to have the first 3 numbers to be the same and the last value needs to be different. So how you do that is you go down here to your internet icon, right click and click Open Network and Sharing Center. Then go Change Adapter Settings, Local Area Connection, right click, click Properties, click Yes. Then you want to select IPv4, select Properties, and here you can see that I'm using 192.168.1.51, so this number needs to be different, but needs to be on the same range. So if I click OK, and I should be able to connect to this via Ethernet cable now. So what you do is connect the Ethernet cable to your controller to the computer. After you do that, go back to the Communication tab and select Ethernet. Now we can search for the device, and this will show all the Wago devices on the network. And there it is there. Click OK, click Apply. So the serial cable is just for setting up communication, but predominantly you want to work with the Ethernet cable because it's higher transmission speed. So writing programs and working with it, you need to use the Ethernet cable. Now, I'll show you a quick trick. To set the IP address with the dip switches, it's automatically set to 192.168.1.something. So what you can do is you can pull up the calculator on your computer, just go to programming mode, and let's say we want 192.168.1.52. So if we type in 52 and we go to binary, this is the code for the dip switches. So on the right hand side it's 0 and on the left hand side it's 1, and you work from the bottom. So this will be the value of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you leave 7 blank. 7 and 8 blank. Okay. Alright, so now let's do a ping to make sure that we have communication to the controller. So we can just open command prompt, just ping 192.168.1.50. This is also a good way to diagnose the controller to see if you still have communication with it. So that's fine. Now let's go into IO check. So what IO check does is it connects to the controller and it can tell you the current outputs or inputs that are on, and also you can use it to configure special cards like the CAN interface module. So first thing we do is go settings, communication. We can search for the device again. That one there. Click apply, and then click identify. This will identify. So you can see here that this is the node that I have. So I've got the controller, an input card, output card, end module. If I go to monitor mode, I can see the lights on. So I'm just going to flick digital input 1, and you can see the light comes on. Digital input 2, light comes on. So that's just basic functionality with IO check. Now let's close this. Yep, that's fine. Now I'm just going to quickly open up Codesys and write a simple program, just linking an input to an output. So let's click a new project there. Now you need to pick the controller that you're using. And for us, it's the 750-880, and it's just blank. There's no extension, so it's not these two. Click that, click OK. I'll just use CFC. So here you can select your different languages. Alright, so now the first thing we need to do is go to the communication. So online tab, communication parameters. Let's make a new one. And just click that top one there. Change this to 50. Okay. So now double click on this where it says localhost and write the IP address. 50. Oops. Make sure that you don't press OK because it won't set it. So you need to click outside the box, make sure it's set, and then click OK. So now we've adjusted the communication parameters. Go to the resources tab, which is the fourth across the bottom. Go into PLC configuration. Let's expand that. Right click on KBus and click edit. And now what we can do is we can scan the node because we've already put in the IP address. For some reason the scan isn't working. If the scan isn't working, you can just add the cards in manually. So just click the add button. Now the input card is the 750-400. There. And also I have an output card, 750-501. Let's add that. Click OK. And now I've added these two cards. What you can actually do is you can actually name the inputs and outputs. So for instance, just triple click that one and I can name this to be digital input 1 and digital input underscore 2. And I can name the output to be digital output 1, digital output 2. Okay, just click OK there. So now those variables are defined and I can use them in my program. So if I click the left tab now and double click PLC underscore PRG, this is where I do my programming. So for inputs, just click that left hand box and I can write digital input 1, like that. If it hasn't been defined, for instance if I write test, it will ask you to define it. And this is a variable that hasn't been defined in the PLC configuration. So I'm just going to delete that. And let's go DI2, O2. Okay, so now I can do an operator, so AND. So what this will do is if DI1 and DI2 are on, then it'll turn on the output. I can change this to OR, for instance. If one of them turns on, then the output will turn on. So I can do that. Just connect these up. and then select this for the output, and the output was digital input 01. So now, this is just a little bit of basic programming. If digital input 1 and 2, if either of them are on, then the output 1 will turn on. So now that's done, I can go online, login. It will say no program on the controller, download new program, say yes. And then you have to also click online and run. Alright, so now I'm going to flick the tab on the controller. You can see turning on digital input 1 turns on digital output 1. Turning on digital input 2 turns on digital output 2. That. And that's it. Thanks.